some concerns, of course, article number 17, some articles and so forth, something with the credit rating procedures, stuff like that. Okay, but for me, I don't care who presented it. For me, the most important thing is we provide this country with this financing vehicle because it will generate more money to the government for the sake, for the interest of this country.
I think this can only be applied if we can just start to be not a country that is depends upon people but upon institutions. Regardless who is there, we have our rules, we have our institutions to be followed, right?
We are building our institutions. Now we have a freely elected president, and now we will be having the People's Assembly.
The parliamentary elections.
Exactly.
That actually time is running out. We cannot talk about it. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Sure.
But at the end, Mr. Yahya Abu Wafa, head of the Economic Committee of Al Wasat Party, thank you very much. Always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm moving now to a break, and we will be back with the Nile Cruise.
A ceremony was held recently in front of the Cinema Cultural Palace in Garden City District in Cairo on the occasion marking the conversion of Nasser 56 movie scenario into a book. This movie had been shooted in 1994, starring Ahmed Zaki along with a number of cinema movie stars. The ceremony was attended by a number of key cinema artistic and media figures, including well-known writer Mamdouh El-Laythi, critic and director Ali Abu Shadi, cinema author Walid Seif, and great writer Mahfouz Abdurrahman, who wrote the scenario of the movie Nasser 56.
بالنسبة لي شيء غريب شوية إن أنا أعمل حفل توقيع أو أحضر حفل توقيع يعني.
As for me, it's a strange thing to attend a signing-in ceremony as I had published nearly 20 books and had not attended any signing-in ceremony for any of those scenarios. I did not even thought about it. It is a good tradition as the authors or writers for artistic works of art have a chance to get acquainted. It is very important, from my point of view, to publish books of the scenarios of the movies as they are very difficult to be read in its traditional form for unspecialized people. That's why it is difficult to publish books for works of arts written for theaters, as people do not flock to read theater texts. That's why there is a need to publish scenarios to help new generations of scenarists to be taught how to write scenarios.
عايزة تكتب في مجالات في التلفزيون وفي السينما وفي يعني مجالات سيناريو مهم.
The book was published recently and this celebration was held for its sake and was also attended by famous movie director Khalid Youssef. A debate was presided over by critic Amir Abaza.
هو أنا كان ليا الشرف إن أنا كنت منتجا لفيلم نصر 56.
I was honored to work as a producer for Nasser 56 movie and become the first one to receive its scenario from writer Mahfouz Abdurrahman. It was a very rich experience to produce this movie in 1994. I don't think all leaders were happy with that work of art, but I can say there were people who were against it. It is a courageous and brave movie that put the history for a very critical stage of Egypt's history, which was the stage of the nationalization of the Suez Canal. Great actress Samira Abdelaziz, the wife of big writer Mahfouz Abdurrahman, also attended the event, which was organized by writer Walid Rashad.
الكتاب بيهم جمهور الدارسين للسينما والدراما.
Scenarist Walid Seif described the book of Nasser 56 as very crucial in the first stage for the people who study scenario and cinema, amateurs on the audience and ordinary citizens levels. The book is not only a scenario, but it is also a critical study that compares between the scenario and the film. This study adds to readers many information that enable them to understand well the scenario. This is Abir Hussein reporting for Nile Cruise.
Welcome back. We talk a lot about democracy and consultants or shura And this is something very important to be tackled these days, because mainly the main idea or the main problem that we face is the idea that no one accepts the other opinion. And whenever you have someone who is against you, immediately you don't accept that person. And how come that we can do like this, or not to be flexible with each other, and then we talk about democracy and consultants? This is something very important to talk about. And today we have the pleasure to have with us Dr. Hassan Wadi. He is a professor of political science and international linguistic negotiations. Hello and welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Dr. Hassan, let me start with what Nashwa said, that maybe it's a bit of a lost concept here in the society in Egypt, the shura or the consultations going on in the society. Will you tell me more about the importance of the consultation?
Consultation is very compatible with the main Islamic teaching
Yes.
of getting people to be on the track of inclusionism, to abandon totally exclusionism, not to be authoritarian, not to be one-way ticket. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used to consult his companions. And when it comes to revelation, al-wahy, he is a prophet, peace be upon him. But in so many instances, he asked his companions to talk about and to give opinion, because it is about al-ra'y wal-mashura, which means opinion and the consultation. So he said so many of the affairs of Muslims could be based on this consultation, giving opinion, getting into healthy argumentation till we find the best argument and the best scenario that we should follow. So this is very, very in the heart of Islamic teaching, Islamic thought, and this should be followed, not to be violated. From my own point of view, there is a lot of violation nowadays when it comes to this concept. Also, the concept of consultation is very near to democracy. But I'd like to quote Nelson Mandela. I would say the president of the Rainbow State. He called South Africa the Rainbow State, to include all currents in governing the whole country. So what did he say? Mandela said that democratization and the democracy has so many models. And when he spoke about Islamic world, in a very nice piece, he said this. He said, all Muslim countries should adapt themselves to the model. They feel fit to their mentality, fit into their cultural pattern, and it is much more of a flexible term. But the most important thing is to catch the essence of democracy. Again, not to be authoritarian. Again, not to be exclusionist, to include all the people
And
in a
that
very
was called by
healthy
Nelson
way.
Mandela after maybe about a revolution there in South Africa.
Oh, yes.
Somehow a revolution.
Yeah, of course. After
And he said something very important.
Yes.
Let's surprise them and to accept all people who belong to the old regime.
Yeah.
And this is something very important, because this is one of our main problems that even was mentioned in the Constitution. How come you are going to exclude all these people? Because all of the people, they belong to the old regime.
Yeah.
How can we exclude all these people
This
and then
is-
we want to live in peace in future? This main statement that he mentioned, let's surprise them and
Yes.
include them with us and give them the
Yeah.
chance to work with us. Can we do this? Can
Yeah.
we ever do this?
The leader who has a containment level, a self-confidence, who's trying to build the confidence, not to build the in-confidence measures, but to build the confidence measures, should be capable of making a statement like that. I should feel that he is the president of everyone, and I should think he is not guided by anything, but by the impulses of the people and their needs and what they want him to be, because they elected him on that particular. So Mandela did this in a very nice way, and every leader who wants to be succeed must build their movement and their action accordingly.
So we can see that maybe other countries other than the non-Muslim countries are going according to what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said about tens of centuries ago, and we're not even improving on that level, on that note.
Yeah,
The
Michael Hart.
consultations and
yeah.
the democratic
Yeah.
form.
Michael Hart said in his choice of the 100 best leaders in the world,
Yes.
and he put Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at the top of this
Yes.
list till now. And he said it is changeable, but he never changed it, because irrespective of his faith, he's not talking about faith. He's talking about the influence of the leader and the practicality of the leader, and the about 20 benchmarks in what way he can gauge who is the best leader. And he put Muhammad, peace be upon him. So let us go back to this cross-cultural communication problem when it comes to this.
Yes.
Since we are talking about the world arena. I think that there is a very nice important concept I teach in my cross-cultural communication courses. It's about power distance. The concept of power distance was defined by someone, a very famous guy, his name is Hofstede. He said power distance means expecting and accepting that power should be distributed in a given way.
Yes.
So it is concept of power distance is so high in countries like Egypt, Japan, where the seniority is very important, where the boss is very important, where the president should be very important. So you accept and expect to give him that power, to enable him to lead and to do this. But of course there are so many elements, legitimacy, that would help in doing this equation. You remember in Egyptian culture, power distance, Hofstede put a lot of scales, like Egypt comes at the top, Kenya and Ethiopia low. And you should recognize that it's very important when you deal with those people that the power distance is little there. It's not high. So in the previous system, one of our ministers for irrigation, the previous one, talked to an Ethiopian, Egypt is the leader and we will never change the treaty and you should abide by the treaty. And he was talking like that with and he pointed his finger.
With a superiority maybe.
The Ethiopian delegate said, you are talking like a boss. And we were, when it comes to legal contracts, the treaty was signed when we were not competent parties. You were under occupation and we were under occupation.
Yes.
Let us talk without this. He told them, don't forget I'm a university professor, something like that. The Ethiopian made hell in their press, but we never cover their press. We never cover. I hope that one day Nile TV would conduct a program from Ethiopia. And we should be leaders by this, by influence, not by pointing, not by power distance. I am the leader and you should obey me.
Yes.
No, not this is the way power distance
I
would
think it
work.
has to do with the way of talking and the body language as well, because it has to do with most of the people who, if you are looking for democracy and negotiations with others, especially when it comes to different cultures and nationalities, I think this is very important to be taken into consideration.
Right, I agree with you. And also I'd like to tell you the funny thing now, is that this power distance is no longer between Egypt and Ethiopia or Egypt and Germany or whatever, and we can use it to measure the differences, by the way. No, it has become very essential to measure it inside. This is what we call intracultural. The divide that does exist in Egypt now, when you have Islamic currents on one side versus the
Liberals.
secular, liberal, whatever, I believe that there is a third party. Again, I'll come to the third party. The third party, whoever he is, but there is a hidden hand. They try to sabotage the unity between Muslim and the Christian. How many events you can say? You can say Maspiro, Naga Hammadi, many, Mbaba, but they failed because Egyptian Christian and Muslims were strong enough, and the Egyptian
they
people
understood that there is a third element. They are not going to give them this chance again. But again,
very good. But let me finish this. So we toppled this conspiracy, and we humiliated the third party without knowing him. He wants now, and he is doing media, broadcasting, we playing on our mistakes mostly. Conspiracy theories are not from vacuum. They play on mistakes.
Yes.
And there are so many people interested to play it, by the way. So here, if you have this divide between current the Islamic current on one side and liberal and the civilian on the other, this is very ideal for the third party to spoil the whole thing for us and to spoil the whole revolution. So, but again, power distance is in the heart of it. So we have to work on the mindset of the two peoples, because the power distance, it's not no longer Ethiopia and Egypt. It's
between the Egyptians themselves.
Yeah, between the Egyptians themselves. The Islamic current has this slogan, يا بديع يا بديع أنت تؤمر رحنا نطيع. يعني ايه بديع can command and people can just obey.
Yes.
So the power distance is so high. And the other side, the power distance became so low after getting the pharaohs out. After a
There is
great
no leader
revolution
between
that
them.
toppled a great authoritarian figure,
Yes.
and someone who was misusing his power, and someone who really is in jail now. And he is from the past. Egyptian, on the other side, has very low power distance now. While we have some other groups, by nature, have a high power distance. And we have to work on both camps to tell them, be watchful of this power distance. You have to make it like this, almost. Like for instance,
But do you think that
there are
the
so many
Islamic
scenarios
current
you
would
can
be
suggest
hearing
here.
such
What's that?
instructions, maybe? The
What?
Islamic current of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafist Nur Party, do you think that they might be hearing such instructions to be lowering
Actually,
the power
I am,
distance?
as a person who is a specialist in this area, in linguistics of negotiation and cross-cultural communication, I talk to every partner. I talk to all the currents.
But do they
And,
respond the same?
Actually, we have to put pressure, and you have to speak with the best of manners. We have to pave the way for a civilized dialogue. I cannot tell them in a very nasty way.
Yes.
Either party. You know, talking the way I have seen professors in the opposition.
Yes.
Hamzawi is teaching conflict. Baradei is has been dealing with international entities with all decency and rules. But when it comes to internal affairs, they both said Morsi should do this. Morsi should abide by what we say. We have conditions. This is zero-sum game. This is not the way things will work out.
Yes.
You
And
mean
the other way around, you know, we have the Salafi
other
and
camp,
you have
yes.
the other side is doing an awful job too. Make mistakes on both sides.
But Dr.
The zero-sum game is there. We have to have it a win-win, and we have to establish decency, and we have to have no conditions before the dialogue, and we can work on the complicated issues like the power distance one.
I'm sorry to interfere, but just before we proceed, you mean by this point that the problem is in people, in the liberal people who are discussing things with the Islamists in general?
They are talking with the same absolutist term. I mean, we have the secularism, I would say the religion of secularism, and the religion of, name it, Islam, of course, and maybe some other religious dogma may be talking. Here, the dogma and the absolutism is a quality of dialogue that should not be there. What should be there? The win-win approach, the system game, the much more complicated games, with the best of dialogic atmosphere. We have to establish the good atmosphere for talking to the people. I was surprised that people in the Islamic currents, even the Salafis, have read my book, Introduction to a Social and Political Negotiation, and they giving me very good positive point. Why should I frame them as devil, or the other way around, or people
Yes.
in the other currents? I think we should try to establish the identification ground through atmosphere, good atmosphere, or basic atmosphere that would be conducive to creating good results for the country to go on. And I think that people should be relaxed a little, and the fear should not be that great in terms of what. Now we have an elected president. It is no longer of an opportunity to be compensated when we have vacuum. And we could not be able to tolerate vacuum, number one. Number two, nobody can stay in his position anymore. If we doesn't like the president, we'll tell him, so long Ajay Ovidardin, thank you very much, we don't need
But no one
another
asked
4
for
terms.
this, I think.
4 years, but we have to work on the common ground,
Yes.
which let us help him, and let us ask him to help himself by disintegrating from the Ikhwan, because Egyptians are afraid of this. We don't know who is ruling
Can
us.
the president do this?
And the president should do this. If I am giving him advice, a sincere one, before the 25th of January, I would ask him to make all the statements that would tell Egyptians, no, مش هتؤمر واحنا نطيع, but we will respect you. But we will respect everything you say, but with take and give, which is reasonable for the sake of this country.
Shura, just as you
And
mentioned
you,
earlier.
not someone else. so many people are speaking on his behalf and weakening his position. He should come up and stand firm to be the president of all Egyptians. This is the only solution for us from my own modest point of view. And if he does this, I think he will be in the right track and Egypt will be in the right track. And we can cooperate. All of us should be cooperating. He will never give an excuse to others to stay in the wrong track. And I think if we do this by wise calculation and good scenarios, I think it would be a fair game and win-win for everyone.
This will solve the problem, everything.
Definitely.
Yes. Well, at the end, Dr. Hassan Wagee, Professor of Political Science and International Linguistic Negotiation, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and I would say that Egypt is a privilege for everyone. Let us keep this country strong and great, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now moving on to a break, and we'll be back to resume the Nile Cruise.